Make sure you're at the right station. Turn on your scanner. And log into your computer. Log into the computer you're using with your school username and password. Good. All right, I'm gonna get my negative holder and put it down where I'm working. And now I'm gonna get the white gloves and put those on to protect my negatives. I'm gonna take out the negatives that I wanna scan one at a time. And check them to see if there's any water spots or any other dust that I need to clean off. Good. Here there are. So what I want to do is breathe on my negative and then wipe it off. Here goes. Be gentle as you are wiping your negative. You do not want to scratch it. Now I want to remove gently the top of my negative holder. It's really important to be gentle because they break easily, just like this one. They're still usable, but it makes it a lot harder. So be very gentle. Now what I want to make sure that I do is put my negative in the right way. There's a diagram here to help you remember. The most important thing is that the shiny side needs to be down, and you should also match the numbers to what you see here. Notice how they're backwards. Now what I want to do is slide the end of my negatives under these little notches here and push it all the way to the edge, just like that arrow is helping you remember. So to double check, here I have my negatives, shiny side down, facing the right way, and they're all the way over to this edge. You can have 2 strips of negatives loaded at the same time, which saves you time if you're scanning multiple images. One more time, make sure the shiny side of your negatives is facing down, which means the emulsion side is facing up. Now put the top of your negative holder in, again, being very gentle. Notice how these little notches fit right into those openings on the negative holder. And now gently snap each of these little snaps into place. Okay. In case any dust is on your negatives, you can use the rocket blower to blow that dust away. Now, open the scanner and line up the negative holder with the scanner bed. What you're looking for is the A tab here because we are using the A area. This A tab needs to be in the little A indentation. Checks to make sure it's right, and you are good. Once your negative holder is in the right place in the scanner, close the scanner and check to make sure that all of your cables in the back of the scanner are in correctly. So this little scanner cable that connects the lid to the base should be in. Oh, and that one wasn't. This cable needs to be securely in, and we've already determined that it does need to be plugged into your computer that you're using. Notice which scanner you have. On this side of the digital lab, we have new scanners that are Epson V550s. Over here on this side of the digital lab, we have the older scanners, which are the Epson V500s.
You're going to need to open Epson Scan. If Applications appears in your dock, go ahead and click on that. And then open the folder Epson Software. And open Epson Scan. Then select the correct version depending on which scanner you're using. I'm using V550, so that's the one I'm going to select. You should select Yes for using Twain. If Applications does not appear in your dock, you can always click on the Finder icon and then select Applications from the window that pops up. You would then scroll down and look for Epson Software, open Epson Software, open Epson Scan, and also select the correct version based on what scanner you're using.
You're going to go to your Applications folder and find the Epson V500 software. Hover over it to make sure you're using the correct version, as this is a Epson V500 we're scanning with. And then you're going to click to open Epson Scan. We're going to open our Applications folder down in the dock, choose Epson V500 software, hover over it to make sure you're using the correct version, and then click Epson Scan. We're going to change the mode to professional mode. And then you're going to get your scanning setting palette. Reflective is if you're going to scan a print or scanning to film. So I'm going to choose film. If for some reason film is grayed out, that means the plug that's connecting the lid of the scanner to the base of the scanner has become unplugged. You'll have to plug that in, restart the scanner, and open Epson Scan again. So I'm going to choose film. I'm scanning black and white negative film. I'm still going to scan in color. I'm going to scan in 24-bit color. That just allows us to save as a JPEG. And then I'm going to choose 3200 DPI, as that is the resolution. Everything else stays the same. Thumbnail is checked, and then I'm going to click Preview to preview my scans. It's going to run a very low-res quick scan to see all of my negatives. My preview, I have the 4 frames on this strip of negatives as thumbnails. I can also view them as a full strip if for some reason it didn't crop them correctly. The scanner uses the small space between frames to detect those frames, and sometimes it makes mistakes. So if I uncheck thumbnail, say OK, and then click preview again, we can see what it would look like without those thumbnails being chosen by the scanning software. So there it is. And I would draw a marquee or a little box around the image that I would want and make my adjustments from there. Once that's done scanning, I can just drag that box and select the next one and the next one and the next one. It's a little slower. You have to do it one at a time. You still want to make your adjustments in the histogram after you've selected it. But this is really if the scanner isn't selecting those frames automatically. I'm going to erase that marquee And then I'm going to switch back to thumbnail because it did a good job. And preview one more time. I'm going to select all of them. I'm going to uncheck all of them. And then I'm just going to select the ones that I want. So I want this frame. I'm going to select that. You can also double click it to view it larger. It's still a low res scan, but it allows me to see it a little bit bigger. I can also rotate it so I can view it in the correct orientation. And then I'm going to click on my histogram over here in the settings palette. And this is a measurement of the pixels from black to white to gray. And the scanning software automatically adjusts it to be a little bit higher contrast. We want to make those adjustments on our own in Photoshop later. So I'm going to drag this to the edge of that little mountain range to make sure I'm capturing all of the information in my scan, in my negative. Once I've done that, click close. And then I'm going to select and tell it where to save these to. So I'm going to choose Other for desktop. I'm going to then name it. So I'm going to name it after the role. So this is group role. And then I can add a little underscore and it'll just number them 1 and up. I can also change that number later on to the actual frame number so that all of my scans are named correctly. I'm also going to add, this is Miss Apples, Apple group role, JPEG, leave that the same, and choose OK. I have to double click this again to get back to the thumbnail view, and then I can click scan. It'll bring this up one more time. That looks good. And now it's going to scan. It'll give me a little progress window. Often this shows a little bit longer than it actually takes. One thing you have to be careful of is if you're scanning multiple frames, sometimes the scanner goes to sleep between frames. And so if you don't hear anything from the scanner, it seems to be stuck, you just wiggle your mouse to wake that back up and it'll pick back up scanning. It shows up on my desktop and I can see it here in a Finder window. Now that I'm finished scanning, I'm just going to check that by pressing the space bar, make sure it looks good before I take my negative out. I'm happy with that. And then I'm going to go back to my Epson Scan software and close that dialog box. And then I'm going to turn off my scanner and take out my negative and let someone else use the scanner.
When your scan has completed, you can turn your scanner off and remove your negative so that the next person can use it. Turn it off, open the scanner, take out the negative holder, carefully open the negative holder, take your negatives out, and don't forget to put them back in your negative sleeve safely. After you've put your negatives away, make sure that you put everything else away too. Your gloves go right back here on the white organizer. The rocket blower gets hung up on the clothespin, and the negative holder, as well as the microfiber cloth, go in this part. We're going to store our digital files in our school Google Drives. To get there, go down to the dock on your computer and open Firefox. This should pull up hcpss.me. If it doesn't for some reason, you can simply type that into the navigation bar on your browser. Now click on G Suite. You're going to have to enter your school username and password here.
Google Drive. So here I have a folder for my photo class, so I'm going to choose photo 1. And then within that, each assignment has its own folder. So this was my group shooting, so I'm going to click on that folder. And then I have a finals and an original. So originals will hold my original scan. And I keep my original scan, that way if I ever mess something up, I can go back to that original scan and start from there instead of having to rescan the negative. Once I'm done editing this, I will save that file to the finals folder. So if I click on my originals, there it is. Notice that anytime I scan something, saved to the desktop, and then when I drag it into Google Drive, it makes a copy of it, so it still remains here. My file, my scan, to my Google Drive folder. If I'm ready to begin editing in Photoshop, I can go ahead and drag that to the Photoshop icon. Or, if I'm done for today, I'm going to drag this file to the trash can